It's time for Wes Strader's Sportsline on ESPN Radio 102.7. Sportsline is a locally produced sports talk show that focuses on high school and WKU, as well as regional athletes who play at the next level. Sportsline was originated by Hall of Fame sportscaster Wes Strader. Now with a new version of Sportsline, here's Garret Browning on ESPN Radio 102.7.
Good afternoon to you sports fans. Welcome to Sportsline.
The legendary Wes Strader ringing us in once again. Hello, good afternoon, sports fans. Welcome to the Wes Strader Sportsline here on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio1027.com, a tradition unlike any other, unlike the Masters included, Tyler.
I mean, I guess. That might be a bit of a stretch, but if you want to say so, I'm not going to disagree.
I'll stretch it. A tradition unlike any other. Special thank you to Wes for letting us continue his show, asking us to continue his show here on the airwaves, and bringing you local news, local sports throughout the area. Little Titans update today as they head on into preseason. Little battle with the Patriots the other day.
Yeah.
I'm going to show off because preseason. That's what it's like.
What are you going to show off? They didn't even win.
Well, I'm going to show off that they played well, I guess.
I mean, they played
know.
their two starting caliber quarterbacks, I guess you could say, in Mariota and Tannehill for an entire half and still lost. The Patriots started Brian Hoyer.
We'll get into it a little further. WKU had some big news updates. Of course, Tyler taking over Red Towel Radio for us. He'll have plenty to talk about this Thursday. Mm-hmm. Had a big opening show this past weekend with Randy Lee and Todd Stewart. And this week, a couple of departures, couple incoming. What's the word for that instead of departure? What should I be using here?
Well, I guess Matt Horton would be more of a returner.
Yeah, returner. Thank you.
Left, and now he's back all of a sudden. Once the entire front court had left, he's like, I guess I can find my way back.
And there are no more departures for basketball. Don't let me. I'm not trying to scare any of the fans out there. We had 2 departures for football. Off the field incident that involved police and gunshots that were heard.
Really weird situation.
A terribly weird situation, and 2 guys mentioned in the report were P.J. Mixon, an offensive lineman, and Quentin Baker out of the backfield, who we have a couple of memories of Quentin Baker. He was a stud as a freshman, had a couple of really good games, but had some off-the-field issues, took some time away from Western, came back, and, you're on a short lease when you've already made some mistakes like that, so that's sad to see about Quentin. And we were kind of talking about PJ off air. As far as we've heard from a lot of people, it's pretty surprising with PJ. I mean,
I had class with him, and I'd like to say that I'm a friend of PJ's. Heck, last week when they went bowling just down the road, I walked in there, and PJ's like, hey, man, what's up? And I talked to him for about a minute, and every indication from him is that he's a really, really good guy. Obviously, he's very talented. The last name, Mixon, yeah. He's related to Joe Mixon. When you think of Joe Mixon, you think of a lot of talent, and obviously that's going to run in the family. But I'm surprised. I'm disappointed. But PJ, I'm really surprised. Really, really surprised. And obviously, we don't know all the details. We do know they have been kicked off the team, and I don't think anything's going to change that. And with Quentin, it's one of those things where you're upset about it, and it hurts, but you're not as surprised because it's happened before, and you hate it for him. Mm-hmm. I think we were all cheering for him because he's another guy that's really, really, really talented. But with PJ, man, it's disappointing, and it's very surprising.
And it's a big hurt to an offense that is still looking for playmakers. An offense that struggled last year. They've got guys in each position group, but they don't necessarily have a lot of depth once again.
And it's a distraction.
Yeah, especially a distraction.
That's what we saw last year with basketball. All the hype that was surrounding that Hilltopper crew, and then you start having stuff like this happen. Now, there's not as much hype for this football team. Granted, I think there's more than last year with Tyson Helton coming into town, and it had been a quiet offseason. The only thing that we had talked about was who's going to be the starting quarterback. Now this comes up. How do they bounce back? Because somebody's going to have to say something about this, and some kind of tone is going to have to be set, and I think it's going to have to happen soon, and Coach Helton is probably going to have to be the person to do that.
We'll get a couple of quotes here in the next coming days. I know they'll have some media availability after practice.
We'll talk to him tomorrow, I think. Yes.
Coach Helton tomorrow, hopefully, and may learn who the starter is as well. You were mentioning that
That's
off air.
the hope. That's the hope. I think,
you're trying to break that news on Red Towel Radio.
Oh, I'd love to, but honestly, I think that he would prefer to get it out of the way. But at the same time, every time we've talked to him, and it could just be a coach thing, he has not leaned either way. And we know it's down to 2 guys. We know for sure. but he hasn't leaned toward either of them.
Ty Story, Stephen Duncan, and Elliot Pratt, who was on SportsWeb last week, he made a really interesting point that Tyson Helton was one of the main recruiters of Stephen Duncan when he came here. So while Ty Story is technically a Tyson Helton guy, he came here with Tyson Helton as the head coach. So is Stephen Duncan by definition.
Oh, he's 100% the schematic fit. He looks like physically a Mike White, a Brandon Doughty. He looks like
Don't put that in my mind.
He looks like a WKU air raid quarterback, and that's why it kind of scares me. I don't know if scares me is the right word, but the fact that he hasn't been named the starter yet kind of makes me lean towards it being Ty Story. But at the same time, you could flip that and say you've got this guy coming in from Arkansas, played at an SEC school, started there, and he comes in as a grad transfer. The fact that he hasn't been announced as the starter yet, I don't know. Either they've both been really, really good and they're both they've both really impressed the coaches, or it could be the opposite.
And I wanted to wait to get into this, but we're already having too good of a conversation, so we'll keep going on this subject. But I feel like it's important to name a starting quarterback this week as opposed to next week, because you're talking about distractions. I mean, think of all those distractions all camp leading up. It's game week.
Yes.
And if you don't know your starting quarterback by the weekend before game week, I feel like that just questions are going to start to arise in the locker room sometimes. The guys are like, man, can we get a leader? Can we get somebody to help us get started? And even if that's not the guy for the whole season, at least kind of set it in stone like, hey, he's going to be the guy at first, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
And I think that's one perk that Tyson Helton has had in this situation is that there are a lot of other guys on this team that have stepped up in those leadership roles. From when I've been at practice, Lucky Jackson he's a super vocal leader. They were doing red zone drills. They were just corner fades, working on that. And a ball was thrown to him. I don't remember which quarterback threw it to him. It was a pretty good ball. Lucky caught it in the back corner, got his feet down, and he turns to him and he says, that's an interception. You got to throw it better than that. Little stuff like that. He has been vocal about everything. The offensive line, we've talked about this a little bit. They're experienced. Every single one of those guys have been there for 4 years already on the starting five. I got to talk to Parker Howell about how they have been able to use that. They've been vocal leaders. We know that we've got a lot of vocal guys on that defense. So that's been, I think, advantageous to Tyson Helton in waiting to make this decision. And if I had to bet on it, I would say that we find out tomorrow night. I think when he talks to the media tomorrow night, that's when we'll find out. Because after that, Wednesday, there's no media availability. That's a closed scrimmage. Thursday is going to be the mock game. And for that mock game, you want your ones out there. Even for a mock game, you don't want to have to go back and forth between quarterbacks. So if I had to bet, I think we find out Tuesday. And if not, I honestly can't tell you, because Thursday I don't think we'll find out if we don't find out Tuesday.
All right, so you get two chances to make a prediction at the starting quarterback. Let's say he names one Wednesday, and you get to break the news, talk about new starting quarterback on Thursday, Red Towel Radio, 5 to 6, and stay tuned afterwards because I got Warren East football season preview.
Quick plug.
Afterwards with head coach Jeff Griffiths, so that'll be a really cool day on Thursday. But let's say he announces the starter tomorrow.
Yes.
Who's your best guess for the starter right now? If you had to guess what Tyson Helton was going with tomorrow.
It pains me because I think, and I don't know this for sure, I don't know this at all. But
your educated guess.
Yeah, from what I've watched at practice, I think it's Stephen Duncan. I think he's the guy. He's the one that in the situations they've put him in, he's been the one to make the throws. I think he's the one they go with. I felt like he's the one they've wanted to go with all along, and I think perhaps this was elongated to give Ty a chance to make up that ground and earn that spot as the grad transfer coming in from the SEC. He's the one that I feel like maybe they've wanted to be the guy, but Stephen Duncan, to me, from the practices I've been to, when you just look at him from a fit perspective, I mentioned he looks like a WKU quarterback with Tyson Helton back. I think he's going to get the job, but I still think it's really, really close.
Is that the best quarterback name that the Hilltoppers have had in the last decade? I mean, we've had some. Mike White is a great quarterback name. Brandon Doughty, that's not a normal quarterback, but obviously it worked out pretty well. I feel like Stephen Duncan.
If he shortens it to Steve
Duncan.
If he shortens it to Steve Duncan, then it's an A1 name.
That's
100%.
That's just an NFL quarterback name,
yes,
Stephen Duncan.
Because then you're like, oh, Steve Vaughn. You're like, let me throw all these names together. Steve Young, Joe Montana. You got to have that one syllable. Tom Brady, Steve Duncan.
Well, and guess what? If he names Ty Story on Wednesday,
That's one syllable.
You can go on Thursday. You can say you got it right anyways.
Yeah. I honestly don't know which one they're going to go with. You could throw all the predictions out there. Heck, they could come out there tomorrow and announce it's Davis Shanley. Who knows? I don't think any of us do.
Yeah, that's the beauty of fall camp, baby. Yep. The fall camp, the mystery that is the WKU football team. It'll be answered soon enough. Some questions hopefully will be answered this week. And then, of course, next week, kicking it off with Central Arkansas.
Can't lose.
That Thursday. And we're going to have a special Red Towel Radio Topper Tailgate.
We'll be there, baby.
Little combination between the two that Thursday, kicking off the season. So hopefully we got a big crowd on hand. Big tailgate. That's a great weekend to tailgate.
Yes,
too.
I mean, Todd Stewart wanted to come join us. So if he's going to join us, why wouldn't you? You have no excuse if Todd's going to be there.
Come back with us. It's the West Strader Sportsline here on ESPN Radio 102.7 FM and online, ESPNRadio1027.com.
It's not luxury, it's fuel. And at Southern States, we know that when the temperature drops, the water needs heating. Or when it's dinner time, you need to know your tank is full. Count on Southern States to be your local propane supplier. Call today for a fill-up. Have a competitor's tank? No problem. Southern States offers a tank swap out at no cost to you. Call Southern States Co-op in Bowling Green, Franklin, and Russellville today and talk to them about taking care of your propane, heating oil, or diesel fuel for your home, farm, or business. Because empty is never an option.
Hey, Chick McGee here for Super Home Surplus. It's a one-stop shop for all your kitchen cabinet, vanity, flooring, and tile needs. With a friendly and knowledgeable staff, they can guide you through every step of the remodeling process. Bring your measurements or blueprints in today and let them help you get the kitchen or bath of your dreams. Super Home Surplus, your interior remodeling superstore. With 2 locations to serve you, 2326 Russellville Road in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and 725 Myatt Drive in Madison, Tennessee. Online at superhomesurplus.com.
Absolutely. Always looking for Jack Doyle. Absolutely. Always looking for Jack Doyle.
Can't wait for more Andrew Luck quotes about Jack Doyle.
I thought you were going to wait. I thought you were going to say you can't wait for more Andrew Luck. I know you can wait.
I can definitely wait on Andrew Luck, but more quotes from Andrew Luck.
Jack Doyle.
I can never get enough of that.
Jack Doyle.
It's the West Strader Sportsline here on ESPN Radio 102.7 FM and ESPNRadio1027.com. We've got a short show today, the Reds versus the Padres. Man, the NL Central, it's a madhouse. The Reds.
It's always a madhouse.
They're close. They're close enough. They still need a pretty big run, but up against a San Diego team that's struggling, and they just lost Fernando Tatis Jr. for the season with a back injury. You can thank the Tampa Bay Rays for that.
Which stinks, because he was so much fun to watch.
He was, man. I was watching the series he got hurt in, and there were just watching him run the bases.
Oh, he's a blur.
It looks like a little leaguer because he's like trying to bait the pitcher.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, I promise, you throw it to third, I'm breaking for home, I'm scoring.
You remember when Billy Hamilton first broke out? Because, I mean, he's just
that's kind of what
fast.
you thought he was going to be.
Right, but it's different because he just plays these mind games, and he wins all of them. He's so much fun to watch, and it's unfortunate that happened.
And, you know, what's funny is that guy should probably deserve Machado's contract for this season, and Machado's, you know.
I deserve Manny Machado's contract.
Local Sports Center update, BG East Little League in their trip to Williamsport. Little disappointing start, but finished on a great note. They got a 4-1 victory over Australia today. I saw a really cool picture of them trading caps after the game, which that'd be pretty cool to come home with an Australia hat.
Wouldn't it be? Yeah.
That'd be pretty dope. And not to mention, I saw a really cool video about teams coming over and respecting the Mason Goodnight jersey.
That was
and
awesome.
Just that whole story. You know, some people get upset at Little League World Series.
I've never understood that.
They feel like it's not fun to watch. It's the most entertaining thing of the summer. Maybe besides
awesome.
the Olympics, when the Olympics come around. But I love watching Little League.
It is, and the thing that I love most about it is the commentators like break each play down from a professional standpoint, and then you realize
those boys are out there hustling.
Yeah, like these kids are good, and it feels like every year they get better and better and better, and you're watching them, you're like, oh my gosh, all these kids are going D1. But it's so much fun to watch, and this year especially, it's been so much more than just baseball. And those videos that you talked about, if you haven't seen those, they are fantastic. It's awesome. People have rallied around it, and this community has really rallied around it, and anything that brings this community together. And ultimately, I think it's brought a lot more people than just this community together. That's awesome, and that's what sports are for.
The manager, Rick Kelly, he's come on a couple of times before with Wes when they've made their runs. So I'm going to have to pressure him into coming back on the show soon. Hopefully we can get some players in here, too, get them introduced.
Dope. They deserve it.
Oh, man.
They deserve it.
They already got enough recognition, but why not?
I got to pat it on.
Yeah, pat it on for the Little Leaguers. Still a great story. BG East Little League 4-1 today over Australia. A couple of WKU tidbits. PJ Mixon, Quentin Baker no longer on the WKU football team after a off-the-field incident this past Saturday night. Not going to get into all the details. You can find more details online, but both of those players have not just been suspended. They are, as of right now, completely off the WKU team. WKU basketball update. Former WKU basketball player Matt Horton.
Now current,
yes. He is back once again. I'm not sure what his eligibility standards are.
I'm pretty sure he can play right away.
Because he didn't enroll anywhere else, I believe.
Yeah, I think he's good to go.
So we'll get some updates on that here in the next couple of minutes. But Matt Horton back on the WKU basketball roster. And with that, a couple of upcoming events for WKU sports. The volleyball team has a big exhibition match August 21st against University of Kentucky. That's always a fun one.
Yep.
In EA Diddle Arena, 5 o'clock. I know they did it different in past years where the exhibition game, they don't run it to the same standard that you would a regular match in the regular season. I'm not sure how Coach Hudson works that this time of year. It may be a regular match since I believe it's going to be their last exhibition of the season.
I think it's actually at Kentucky.
Is it at Kentucky?
I believe so. We can fact check it.
WKUsports.com has versus Kentucky, but you never know. That could mean at Kentucky.
Who knows?
Double check the website. Call in if you need to, but they do play UK in an exhibition August 21st at 5. Women's soccer, they're at home. And it's their season opener, the 22nd against Belmont, 7 o'clock. They've already had one of their HSSN broadcasts with Brett Williams on the call. That was kind of their testing things out. It was an exhibition matches for the ladies who played really well through their exhibition matches as well. But now it gets tight. Now it gets real, and you can watch that game on Facebook. HSSN's Facebook page. They'll carry soccer, softball, and volleyball throughout the season. Not every home game, but the majority of all home games, which is just so cool.
Oh, and Brett has done a fantastic job with those. I got to listen last night, and gosh, he's so good. Everything he does is just golden. He has such a great play-by-play voice.
I tried to tell him if he needed help with soccer, I'll come help. But the problem is that, like, when something happens and I get real excited, my British announcer's going to, what a firecracker that is. Chandler Bax.
Yeah, he doesn't do anything like that. He keeps it under control.
Yeah, you probably have to test yourself every now and then, I feel like, in those sports.
Well, I feel like that's why he does something like when we go to Holiday World and we go down a ride. And I mean, when I tell you this man just screams anything, I kid you not. Whatever pops into his head, he just yells it. And I think he gets rid of it all. It's like a 4-hour relaxation period. He just gets everything out of his system, and then he comes back ready to go.
Is it
PG?
PG?
Oh, yeah, it's 100% PG. It's just the most random stuff. Like if he says one thing, he'll say something that relates to that. So maybe he'll go Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and then he'll just start rattling off all of these soft drinks. And then if he says water, maybe that'll transition into rain, and then he'll go into all these storms. And it's so random. I have no way to describe what his mindset is or how it works, but he just starts yelling stuff, and that's how it works.
Summer, it's usually a lull period for us around here. It starts kicking up around fall camp. I know Tyler's been staying busy going out to practices with some good videos, but now it gets real. We got football games this weekend, Tyler. We got high school football starting this Friday. Warren East will play in the Kenway Concrete and J. Allen Builders Bowl at Warren East High School. Russellville will play against Warren East. That's the game we're going to carry here on ESPN Radio. We'll have the season preview show this Thursday after Red Towel Radio. And Tyler, our guy, gets to cover Franklin Simpson, who, they made a little noise last year.
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
How much noise would you consider winning a state championship? How much would you consider winning back-to-back state championships?
I'm trying to play it down, man.
I'm just saying. I mean, they've been to 3 straight. It's nothing. Chip off the old block.
We'll get to meet each other once again. We'll be rivals in the booth once again across from each other. I think it's at Franklin this season.
Yes, it should be. We played at East last year.
Yeah, so
At the
we'll probably
Smurf
be
turf.
in that terrible press box, even though I've never been to Franklin Simpson.
Oh,
It's
no,
probably
it's
a
awesome.
nice.
It's great. I love it. There's air conditioning and there's heating. And when it comes to press boxes, that's all you can ask for.
It's going to be an interesting year around the region, I should say. South Warren, of course, the big dogs from 5A last year, but they lose a lot of key players from, basically the last 3 years that they've played. Of course, Jacob Lacey up there at Notre Dame, probably killing it at fall camp.
I'm sure.
Who knows what he's doing as a rookie up there. And even Gavin Spurrier walking on at Duke, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but, David Cutcliffe still at Duke. I mean, he is the Manning quarterback maestro. He gets credit for all of those. I mean, guy got Daniel Jones drafted when people thought he may not be drafted. I would not be surprised if Spurrier sneaks in, maybe earns himself a scholarship eventually. I'm telling you, they lost a lot of talent.
Are you willing to go all in on him like you did Delano Banton?
No.
Because for his sake, you should.
Did Banton end up at Nebraska?
Yes. So, I guess the dream is still alive, but for all intents and purposes.
He does seem like a Big Ten guard, if you know what I mean.
Guess,
Just
a little bit.
Not-
I can see it.
Not very, accurate, but tall and big.
Let's talk about high school football, Garrett.
Warren East, they've got a big one this Friday to open up the season against Russellville. I believe Russellville's got a new coach, too, I'm pretty sure. Warren East doesn't have a new coach, but Russellville, I believe, has their new coach, and they're going to bring in an offense that struggled a little bit last year, but they're usually a powerhouse among the teams in that area. Logan County has really started to take over that area.
Yes.
They were, bottom dwellers for a while, and Todd Adler's come along. So Russellville's kind of having to match that pace. It's a big game for both of those teams in week one because you just want to set the tone for the season. And sometimes your week one matchup, especially when you play a team that's kind of your level, anything can happen. I mean, sometimes you play against those big-time opponents, you get wrecked in the first week. It kind of sets the mentality for the rest of the season. In one of these games, you can beat a team that you're similarly, on a level playing field with. It can boost some momentum heading into the next couple of weeks where they have a tough schedule. They got South Warren in the first 3 weeks.
It's one of those games, if you're Warren East, you're looked at, you're picked to win, and they are. I think if you just put them head-to-head on a neutral field, you could. I'm not going to say it's a coin flip. I think Warren East would still win, but it's one of those games. If you're Warren East and you lose it, that hurts. That hurts a lot. You have to win. Russellville, they got a lot better last year. They're still working on that spread experiment. And I've heard some noise. I don't know how accurate the noise is that they've got some good quarterback play. I don't know how. Like I said, I don't know if that's truthful or not. We're going to find out pretty darn soon. High school football is one of those things.
First-year quarterback, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you hear noise everywhere. You hear noise about everybody. It can be true. It can be totally false. We're going to find out. And high school football, you find out quick. You know who's good. You know who's not. And you could pretty much learn it in week one.
So who's standing in the way of Franklin Simpson for another state title? We mentioned South Warren lost a couple of key pieces, but as far as Franklin Simpson's schedule goes and what they lost, what do you think?
Well, Boyle County moving to 4A is huge because they have been dominant at the class below, and now they're making the jump up to 4A. I think a lot of people are picking them to win the state championship in 4A. I don't know about that because moving up classes is hard. It's tough to be a 3A team playing 4A teams, and just to automatically make the jump up to 4A doesn't mean just like that you're on an even level. I think it's going to be a bit of a tough transition. I'm not saying that they're not going to make a run at it. I think they're a Final Four team. But for Franklin Simpson, I think a team that a lot of people are overlooking within our own region, Madisonville North Hopkins. Franklin Simpson knocked them out last year on their way to the state championship, and they returned literally, I kid you not, everyone. They did not have one senior in their starting lineup.
Wow.
Their starting 22 last year. They returned every single one of their starters from a year ago, and they just about beat Franklin Simpson on our home turf. And I'm not saying that it's a guaranteed thing that they're going to come out and be the best team in the region, but if I had to pick a team to win the region right now, just based off of what I saw last year, Franklin Simpson lost a lot, and I got to try to be as unbiased as I can. So if I had to pick a region favorite, obviously Franklin Simpson and Warren East in the same region, since they're in the same district, I would pick Madisonville North Hopkins if I had to pick right now. And I think that's the big-time roadblock.
I've learned this through the Tennessee Titans. You lower expectations, so that way if they meet those, you're still happy with what happened throughout the season. But if they surpass those, feels even better.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Franklin Simpson made a run at a fourth straight championship appearance because Doug Preston is still the coach. And as long as he's the coach, I don't see a bad year happening. But his expectation is to make a run at the state championship. And for him, anything less than that is a disappointment. And I think it's going to be harder than in past years. The schedule is tough early on after Greenwood. You got Meade County, South Warren, then you travel below the border to take on Battleground, who the last time they took on Franklin Simpson drummed us on homecoming. I remember it. It has scarred me for life. It scared me to death to see him on the schedule again. But those are some really good tests, and I think they are there because of how tough 4A is this year with Boyle County making the jump. Johnson Central is going to contend again, and I don't understand the lack of noise around Madisonville North Hopkins. I've heard little to anything about them, and I think they're going to make a run.
And I got to make a correction. Shout out our guy, guess who? Charles Lewis.
Of course.
Making up for my mistake once again. Mikey Benton, he's in his second season at Russellville.
But that spread offense.
Which you helped me out there. Yeah, second year of the spread offense. So they are poised to try and make a breakout year as well. We'll get much more into the Warren East schedule and about the Warren East roster this Thursday with our season preview show. J. Allen Builder, Kimway Concrete back for another season. Special thanks to Southern States, Hardee's, and Oak Tree Awards helping put Warren East Athletics on the air. We had a fun fall season, had a really great spring wrap-up all the way to the state championship. I'm not going to complain when I get to go visit Lexington.
Oh, not at all.
Get paid for that. So hopefully we get some noise here in the football and the basketball ranks here throughout the fall. We'll take a break on the Sportsline. You're on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio1027.com. Tyler Eaton, Garret Browning.
When Poston Electronics opened in Bowling Green back in 1974, it sounded more like this.
Turn it up, man!
Now Poston is as legendary as the artists Southern Kentuckians pumped through the speakers they've bought there for the last 45 years. Poston is everything audio with top brands like JP Audio and Alpine. From home theaters, boats, motorcycles, side-by-sides, custom work, installation, service, or sales, Poston still has the sound. Turn it up, man. Poston Electronics, across from Firestone on Broadway Avenue.
Finally done. Oh, I need a steak right now.
No worries, mate. Outback Steakhouse at Bowling Green now delivers.
What? Who said that? I can have Outback at home?
Just sit back, relax, put an order in at Outback.com, and they'll bring you Aussie favorites right to your door.
Thank you, oh great spirit of the Outback.
What? Oh, no, mate. I'm just a figment of your imagination. And remember to take your shoes off at the door. Got grass stains everywhere last time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Outback Steakhouse at Bowling Green delivers. Start your order right now at Outback.com.
It's Dub City, according to Tyler, who thinks everything is Dub City.
Everything's Dub City.
Everything's Dub City on
Unless
Red
it's
Top.
LA. Get it because I suck.
Is that how we're going to end the show?
Yep.
This is ESPN.
Good afternoon to you, sports fans. Welcome to Sportsline.
He'd be proud of us. We're keeping the tradition strong, Tyler. Our man Wes Strader on the Wes Strader Sportsline. We do things a little differently than Wes did his show, but that's
to say the least.
That's what made our dynamic so great, man. He could pull out anything from the 90s and the 2000s, and if it was current, though, I had to hook him up. I had to help him out a little bit.
Our library is a little smaller.
Kind of, that's how it is now. I can remember the weirdest of stats and the weirdest of things, but the simple stats and the simple things I should remember. That's why I have you here, Tyler, to keep me on track.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Gives me purpose.
You've been busy doing some things down at the Zone 104.5, so you got to hang out with some Tennessee Titans football throughout the preseason, a little camp action.
Yes.
A little practice action. Did you get your man Tom Brady give you a signature?
No, literally almost all of the big names, and I was even surprised by this. Guys like Edelman, Dante Hightower, they were all out there signing autographs, and of course Tom didn't, which is understandable. I mean, if you go down there and you want autographs from Titans players, Mariota almost never signs anything. I guess it's just a quarterback thing, and it could just be, Mike Vrabel was with the Patriots. He comes down, he's like, okay, my quarterback's not going to sign anything because Brady doesn't in New England, so
Who knows?
I didn't expect Tom to sign anything, but I was surprised that so many Patriots players signed stuff because those 2 days that the joint practices took place, it was probably 75% Patriots
I wonder if
fans.
they give them days where certain players are supposed to go over and do that. It's like, hey, you go over today and you go walk through the line and
It's been a little different this preseason, mostly because of the Taylor Lewan situation. So he's been on this big PR tour where every day Taylor Lewan is out there signing as much stuff as he can because he's trying to get the good grace of the public back with him. And so if you go down there,
it hasn't fooled Tyler. You
Taylor
can hear
Lewan
in his
is
voice.
There. Oh yeah, I know exactly what it is. I know why he's out there signing stuff. But Lewan's down there. If you were to go down there, maybe one of the first days, you might have run into Derrick Henry. Jarrell Casey's been good about signing stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you went down there the first day, I think Derrick signed some stuff. Jarrell Casey's been pretty good about it. And then you'll get those guys farther down on the roster, which for them, it's more fun for them than I think the fans to get to go out there and sign stuff. But there are a lot of guys that'll sign your gear if you want to go down there.
So you've gotten to watch a little practice. Tannehill, Mariota. I'm not even going to get into this quarterback controversy.
There's not a quarterback controversy. There's not.
As a true Titans fan, I think anybody would agree with me. The only reason Tannehill plays is if he's injured. And the reason I say that is if they're playoff bound and they're close to the playoffs, you want to let Marcus go, obviously. I mean, that's not even a question. If you have 3 wins or 4 wins, just let him play it out. Get rid of his contract this offseason when he's a free agent and then, start over. I feel like that's really the best option you could do. Tannehill is just there to be a better Blaine Gabbert.
Well, I think in theory he is there to raise Marcus Mariota's, I don't want to say skill level, but
just a little competition.
Yeah, just to give him something to want to raise his game for. To give him something to where if he goes out there and has a bad game, there's not somebody like Blaine Gabbert or Matt Castle sitting behind him. You're like, oh, okay, I could actually be pulled. So you go out there against Indianapolis, for example, a game that, dear Lord, if they win, my goodness. But if they don't, nobody's surprised. You go out against Indianapolis. Say Andrew Luck doesn't play, and you're down at halftime. Any other situation in the past, you're sticking with Marcus because that's all you got. This year, though, if you're playing Indianapolis, no Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett's out there, and you're still losing at halftime, say you're down by a couple of scores, who's to say Mike Vrabel doesn't pull the trigger and send Ryan Tannehill out there? Yeah. That's why he's there, just to maybe light a fire under Marcus to say, oh, okay, there is no given that I'm going to get the contract extension that I want.
And I'm not a huge believer into buying into he's playing really well in training camp or he's playing really bad in training camp.
Neither of them have played well, I can tell you that.
But, that doesn't super bother me. It's just what happens when you get out there week 1 and, in camp it happens. We see it every year in Hard Knocks, just drop passes, missed
or Antonio
routes,
Brown's feet.
AB, whatever, drama like that. There's a little drama in the Titans locker room we don't really know about right now. There's always something. It's just how you come out week 1. I think the big thing this year, the first part of their schedule is so tough. And then Taylor Lewan getting suspended again. I mean, it just has all the makings of 7 wins, 8 wins.
And that's the worst case scenario is you win 7, 8, or you go 9 and 7 again. Then you're stuck in between, okay, we don't have a good enough draft pick to take a quarterback unless we trade up to get a Justin Herbert. I think Titans fans will be okay with Justin Herbert.
I don't want another Oregon quarterback. We just spent 5 years trying to figure
it out. But
he's
not Marcus Mariota, and we can talk about
this
not even another day. When we get to that point, we could talk about it. But to be in that range, maybe 12 to 16, where you don't have a pick good enough to take a franchise guy, but at the same time, you didn't make the playoffs, and you weren't really close to ever being a contender. That's where the Titans have been the past few years, and
why do you think Jake Locker ended up on the roster? I think he was like the 11th pick or something like that.
You can't take a quarterback right there and expect him to be the guy. It can turn out that way. Heck, you've got guys second, third round. Tom Brady was taken in the 200s.
As much as quarterbacks go these days, it's like you either got to pick right at the top of the first round or you got to find somebody in that second to fourth round range that people are sleeping on.
And the thing about today is that people don't sleep on the Russell Wilsons of the world anymore. That's
especially after Baker Mayfield.
That's why Baker Mayfield went first overall. None of those guys are going to be diamonds in the rough anymore.
You can't tell me if Baker Mayfield didn't have that rookie season that Kyler Murray was going to go number
There's
one.
no chance.
There's no chance he goes number one if Baker Mayfield doesn't do what he does.
Oh, yeah, because before that, the thought was with the Johnny Manziels of football. You saw how poorly that experiment went. Even Tim Tebow, who was thought of as a mobile quarterback first, that experiment, he won a playoff
He's a winner.
game. And then he's playing minor league baseball
Was that
still?
the Broncos last? No, it wasn't, because they had Peyton Manning and company.
Yeah, then they upgraded just
I forgot
just a
about that.
smidge.
Just for a split second.
I think most Colts fans like to forget about that. But, it worked out for them.
He almost came to Tennessee.
He did, and I think most people wish he would.
Oh, God, I was hoping so bad he would end up in Tennessee.
Imagine what the Titans could have done instead of Kerry Collins. They've got Peyton Manning.
It felt really dirty. I'm not going to lie, but I really wanted it. I wanted it so bad.
Think about how often in football, though, players
I'm also
go
not a
in
UT
division.
fan. So.
No, I don't think anybody up
that
here
burnt
is.
orange. It's not the prettiest.
This has gone off the rails.
We got a couple of minutes left. Reds and the Padres are going to kick us off the air here in a little bit. The Reds, they got rid of Yasiel Puig, but they bring in this Aquino.
Oh, my goodness.
Are you ready for this? Aristides Aquino.
That's pretty good.
That was really good.
It sounds like the Keno game that you'll go and play at like an overtime. My dad loves that game. He's terrible at it.
Oh, yeah, that's why it's there.
Yeah,
for people to
so
be
much
terrible
fun.
at it. But, 10 home runs in his first 16?
I think it's
14?
11 and 17 now. Or
11
something
and
like
17?
that. Yeah, he's the fastest to 11 ever. Some kind of stat like that.
The Reds needed something like that. They get rid of Scooter Gennett right when you thought, hey, they could have a playoff push. And then they're like, Scooter Gennett, we'll send him to, where do they send him, the Giants or something?
Somewhere.
Who
Purgatory.
knows? Yeah, purgatory. But all of a sudden, they've gotten some guys to step up. The pitching has come along. Trevor Bauer, that was a really good acquisition, especially because the Indians were kind of kicking him out the door.
Yep.
It was like, why not?
He turned and slung a ball into the stands.
I love that kind of
That was
fire.
awesome.
I know he was upset and I don't think that was really why you needed to trade him.
Right.
Maybe Terry Francona and him reached that boiling point, but it's like, dude, he's just that's the kind of guy he is.
That's why I wanted him to keep
He's so
Puig.
fiery.
Those two together,
Oh,
I would
gosh.
have loved it.
I think that was the deal between Cincy and Cleveland. They were like, look, you can have this hot head. We'll take your hot
Just swap
head.
hot heads.
We'll swap them. It's time. Puig had run his course. Too many fights. Trevor Bauer
You
needs
can't
to
have
come
too
in.
many fights in baseball. It's like hockey. What is the most exciting part of a hockey game? The fights. 100%. Even the most diehard hockey fans, I feel like, have that opinion.
That's close,
Baseball
man.
needs more fights. That's my deleted tweet. How about that? Baseball needs more fights.
I think if a batter gets pugged, belted in the box with the ball,
Let him charge.
not only that, how about right after the play, the pitcher has to stand in the box and the batter can throw a fastball at him.
In a lot of these,
It's
of these
only
batters,
if you hit him with a fastball.
right?
Though.
And
If
a
you
lot
hit
of
him
these
with the
batters
breaking ball, that's
pitched,
one thing.
So they could probably throw like 90s. Now, do they have to set and throw from the mound, or can they get a hop and
it
go?
needs to be a pitch.
I still
it has
think
to
they
be
could
a
hit it
pitch.
mid 80s, high 80s. A lot of these batters could.
Can't tell me that's a bad idea. It'll slow down the game a little bit, but we can.
Sportsline promoting violence.
I talked about this on the Red Leg show not too long ago. Why in the hell does Major League Baseball not have the tennis challenge for strikes and balls yet?
I
You
don't
know
know.
the tennis challenge? If people that don't know what I'm talking about, when you watch tennis on TV, when the ball is really close to hitting the white line, the other guy will just hold his hand up, and literally within 10, 15 seconds, a little animation will pop up and it'll say in or out.
Well,
And then within 10 seconds, and then it's over.
I was listening to the Titans-Patriots game, and it just reminded me of this. Coach Mack, who does the color.
Dave McGinnis?
Yeah, I don't remember what happened, but he goes, man, I cannot wait until we have robots to replace these officials in 5 years. And Coach Mack is as old-fashioned as they get. And he just went on and said just that.
Human error, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And this baseball, you're watching Gardner and all them get kicked out.
What do you think about the mercy rule that they've talked about adding to baseball?
Like 10 runs?
I don't know exactly what the number would be, but I think it's genius. I think it's absolute genius.
I like it and I hate it. I kind of wish that the other team had the choice. Like, hey, do you want a mercy rule or do you want to keep going?
Yeah, that works.
But I doubt very many teams
Or you could
would
just
be
set
like,
an inning standard, like high school, baseball and softball. If you're down by 15 through 3 innings, 10 through 5. It doesn't have to be exactly when it hits. It's not like 21 skunk, but there are ways to organize it. Speed up the game. Speed it up. That's what everybody wants, I think.
I think the biggest thing is just like, not necessarily a pitch clock, almost a batter's clock. We're running out of time. We're going off at a tangent. The Reds and the Padres are ready to kick us off the airwaves. Marty Brenneman, the Cowboy Jeff Brantley, coming up on ESPN.
Suddenly, but it's time for